In the 41st millennium, there are 10,000 ways to die. Famine, war, pestilence, and the ravenous hunger of the warp itself. But what happens when something arrives that hungers more deeply than even the abyss? What happens when a creature appears that doesn't just kill, but erases? The hive city of Mortessa Prime had stood for 6,000 years, a monument to the Imperium's endurance. 60 billion souls crammed into its towering spires and bottomless underhive, all serving the God Emperor's eternal machine. The nobles above breathed recycled air, perfumed with incense. The workers below breathed toxins and thanked him for the privilege of suffering. Then, something fell through reality itself. No Augur array detected it. No astropath sensed its arrival. One moment, the lowest level of Mortessa's underhive was its usual hell of gang warfare and desperate scavengers. The next, a rift opened. Not the purple-black tear of the warp, but something else, something wrong. It looked like reality had been cut with jagged teeth, bleeding colors that had no names. Through that wound stumbled a young man. He hit the rust-eaten floor hard, naked except for tattered pants, his orange hair matted with blood that wasn't entirely his own. For 3 seconds, he lay still. Around him, the gangers of the Rust Kings froze, autoguns half raised, staring at this impossible arrival. Then, Denji, though he didn't know anyone here would care about his name, lifted his head and said the first words spoken by a devil hunter in the 41st millennium. "I'm so hungry I could die." The Rust Kings opened fire. Lasbolts and stub rounds tore through the space where Denji had been lying, but he was already moving, faster than their augmented eyes could track. He yanked a cord hanging from his chest, a strange mechanical pull start embedded in his sternum, and transformed. Chainsaws erupted from his skull and arms. Not the crude chain blades of the Imperium, blessed by tech priests and anointed with sacred oils. These were wrong. They roared with a sound that made reality flinch, spinning at speeds that blurred the air itself. The young man's head had become a mass of chrome teeth, his face split by the vertical chainsaw that replaced it entirely. His arms ended in whirling destruction. The Rust Kings screamed. Some fired, others ran. Neither response mattered. Denji tore through them like they were made of paper. Blood sprayed across corroded walls. Bodies fell in pieces, but not the clean cuts of monomolecular blades. These wounds looked erased, as if the flesh had simply stopped existing where the chainsaws touched. Within 30 seconds, 17 gang members had ceased to be obstacles. Then Denji stopped, swaying slightly. The chainsaws retracted with a wet mechanical sound. He staggered to the nearest corpse, a heavy-set ganger whose augmetic arm still twitched, and bit into the man's throat. He drank. The blood worked. It always worked. Denji felt his energy return, the gnawing emptiness in his chest subsiding. He'd been falling through that weird dimensional tunnel for what felt like hours, watching impossible colors and hearing sounds that made his teeth ache. Now he was somewhere that smelled like rust and promethium and human desperation. Somewhere that reminded him of home. What in the Emperor's name? A voice croaked. Denji looked up, blood running down his chin. One ganger had survived, pressed against the wall, his autogun fallen from nerveless fingers. His eyes were wide, reflecting the dim bioluminescence that barely lit the underhive. "Where am I?" Denji asked, genuinely curious. "And do you have any food? Real food, I mean. Not just..." He gestured vaguely at the corpse. Food district? The ganger's mind was breaking. He'd seen demons before, during the cult uprising of 987 M41. He'd watched his brother consumed by a plague-bearer's touch. But this was different. This thing spoke like a confused teenager, but it had just erased 17 hardened killers without breathing hard. "Yeah, restaurants, convenience stores?" Denji's stomach growled audibly. "I haven't eaten real food in..."
Actually, I don't know how long. That trip was weird. Above them, something stirred. The Mortessa enforcers had detected the weapons fire. And higher still, in the inquisitional fortress that crowned the Hive City, an Ordo Xenos acolyte paused mid-prayer. His psychic wards had just registered something impossible. Something that shouldn't exist. The ganger finally found his courage, or perhaps his fanaticism. "The Emperor protects," he whispered, reaching for a concealed melta-charge. Denji sighed. "Look, man, I really don't want to..." The melta-charge activated. Heat that could vaporize ceramite exploded outward. When the white-hot glare faded, there was a Denji-shaped hole melted through 3 levels of hive structure. Far below, in the toxic sump pools that formed Mortessa's foundation, something stirred back to life, regenerating from charred bones. And he was even hungrier now. If you crave stories of impossible devils meeting the dark millennium's endless horrors, smash that subscribe button. The Emperor protects those who witness what cannot be erased.
The Inquisitor's name was Valdrin Coast, and he had spent 40 years hunting things that shouldn't exist. Geno-stealers masquerading as planetary governors, Necron Toon Tech smuggled through merchant guilds. Once, a harlequin who'd infiltrated his own retinue for reasons he still didn't understand. But nothing in those 40 years had prepared him for the pict feed currently displaying on his data slate. "Replay it," he commanded. His tech priest, Magos Ferrum, complied with a burst of binaric cant. The hololith flickered, showing grainy footage from an underhive surveillance servitor, a young man, impossibly alive after a melta blast, regenerating from bones, then transforming, those chainsaws erupting from impossible places and tearing through an enforcer patrol with mechanical efficiency. "Analysis," Coast said quietly. "Negative match across all xenobiological databases. Negative match for known demon manifestations. Negative match for sanctioned abhuman variants. Negative match for..." "I understand." Coast leaned forward, studying the creature's movements. There was no grace to it, no martial discipline, just overwhelming violence delivered with the casual brutality of someone swatting flies. What about the implements? The chainsaw mechanisms display no technological signature consistent with Imperial, Xenos, or Archaeotech design. They appear to be biological in nature, yet function as machinery. The dichotomy is... Ferrum's optical implants whirred uncertainly. "Heretical to contemplate." "Everything's heretical until we classify it," Coast muttered. He'd already dispatched 3 kill teams to the Underhive. 2 hadn't reported back. The 3rd had sent a single Vox transmission. Screaming, the sound of chainsaws, then static. The creature was moving upward through the hive levels. Not purposefully, surveillance suggested it was simply following the scent of food. It had broken into a corpse starch processing facility, consumed 3 months' worth of rations in 20 minutes, then continued climbing, heading toward the populated levels. "Prepare my retinue," Coast ordered. "Full Tempestus support, and activate the Kulixis." Ferrum's mechanodendrites twitched, surprise in the Mechanicus body language. "My Lord Inquisitor, deploying a pariah assassin against an unknown entity risks..." "It's not demon-touched. You said so yourself, which means it has a soul. And if it has a soul, the Kulixis can break it." Denji had never been happier in his life. The corpse starch had been disgusting, gray paste that tasted like feet and sadness, but there'd been so much of it. He'd eaten until his stomach hurt, then eaten more,
Now he was wandering through what seemed to be a residential level, marveling at how terrible everything looked. Rusted walls, flickering lights, people living in literal boxes stacked 40 high. Everyone looked exhausted, malnourished, and somehow still working. He'd seen factories back in his world, but this was different. This was industrial despair given architectural form. "Hey," he called to a woman shuffling past, her face hidden by a rebreather mask. "What's this place?" She didn't respond, didn't even look at him, just kept walking, clutching a data slate that probably told her where to report for her 17-hour shift. "Rude," Denji muttered. That's when the lights went out. Emergency lumens kicked in, bathing everything in red. Klaxons began wailing, a sound Denji was intimately familiar with from devil attacks. Then the Vox casters, mounted on every corner, crackled to life. "Attention, citizens of level Quintus 9. Withdraw to your habitation units immediately. Xenos threat detected. The Emperor protects." "Xenos," Denji said aloud. His answer came in the form of soldiers.
They descended from the upper levels on grav chutes, moving with practiced precision. 20 men in carapace armor, hellguns raised, forming a perfect firing line. Behind them came something else. A woman in powered armor marked with the inquisitorial rosette, flanked by gun servitors whose targeting lasers painted Denji's chest. And behind them, something that made Denji's skin crawl. It wore a bodysuit of living metal and a helmet that seemed to drink light itself. Just looking at it made Denji's head hurt, like trying to remember a dream that kept slipping away. The thing radiated wrongness. Not evil, not dangerous, just absence. "Target acquired," one of the soldiers voxcast. "Awaiting orders." Inquisitor Coast stepped forward, studying Denji with augmented eyes that whirred and clicked. "Identify yourself, creature. By whose authority do you walk the Emperor's domain?" Denji blinked. My own authority? I'm just looking for a way home, man. This place is depressing." "Blasphemy," the Inquisitor said flatly. "The Emperor's realm is sacred. Your very existence is an affront to his order." He raised one hand. "You will submit to sanctioning or you will be destroyed. There is no third option." Denji scratched his head, genuinely confused. "Look, I don't know who this Emperor guy is, but I'm not really into the whole authority thing, you know? I've got my own life. Can't you just point me toward whoever handles dimensional travel and..." Fire! The world exploded in las fire. Hellgun beams, each capable of punching through ceramite, converged on Denji's position. He yanked his pull cord on instinct, transformation taking him before conscious thought could. Chainsaws erupted. The beams hit him, burned through clothes, scored his skin, but he was already moving. 3 soldiers died before they could blink. Denji's chainsaw arms carved through carapace armor like it was cardboard, the erasure effect leaving wounds that didn't bleed properly, edges that looked wrong to human eyes. "Kulexis!" Coast shouted. "Now!" The pariah assassin moved. It crossed the distance in heartbeats, and suddenly, Denji felt empty. The hunger he'd satisfied with corpse starch returned tenfold. His chainsaws sputtered, engines coughing. It was like someone had reached into his chest and pulled out something essential, leaving only void. The Kulexis struck him with a fist wrapped in anti-psychic energy. Denji flew backward, crashing through a wall. Pain exploded through his body, real pain, the kind his regeneration usually smoothed over instantly. He tried to transform again, but the chainsaws barely emerged, whining and weak. "What the hell?" he gasped. The Kulexis advanced, its eyeless helmet tracking him with predatory focus. Behind it, Coast watched with grim satisfaction. A pariah generates a null field. It negates the warp, drains the soul itself. You may not be demon, creature, but you clearly draw on some supernatural source. And now that source is... Denji bit his own arm off. Blood sprayed.
The Kulexis paused, uncertain. Its kind were trained to fight psychers and demons, not things that mutilated themselves for tactical advantage. Denji swallowed his own blood, felt it hit his stomach, felt the regeneration kick in with desperate fury. His arm regrew, the chainsaws roared back to full life. "I've fought way weirder than you, and I'm getting really tired of people telling me what to do." He charged. The Kulexis met him head-on, null field flaring. Where they collided, reality seemed to hiccup. Chainsaw met anti-psychic fist, erasure met void. The soldiers were firing again, but their shots went wild. Half the Hellgun beam simply vanished mid-flight, erased by proximity to Denji's chainsaws. Coast watched his perfect trap fall apart and made a decision he would regret for the rest of his very short life. "Bring the entire level down," he voxed to his command ship in orbit. "Orbital strike. Authorization Coast 7 Theta." "My lord, there are 3 million citizens on..." 3 million souls weighed against Holy Terra itself. Fire! High above, lance batteries swiveled. Denji, wrestling with the Kulexis, didn't see the targeting laser paint the ceiling. Didn't see Coast and his retinue activate grav chutes and ascend. He only saw the Kulexis suddenly disengage and leap backward, fleeing with inhuman speed. Then, the ceiling turned to plasma.
The land strike vaporized 17 city blocks instantly. 3 million souls became ash and memory in the span of a heartbeat. The Imperium would record it as acceptable losses in xenocide operation. The families would never receive bodies to burn. The priests would tell them their loved ones died in the Emperor's service. None of this mattered to Denji because he was currently drowning in corpses. The orbital environment had collapsed 12 levels of hive structure, creating a cascading avalanche of metal, rockcrete, and human remains. Denji fell through it all, his body pulverized and regenerating in cycles, each death and rebirth requiring more blood. He fed on whatever touched his mouth during the fall. Didn't matter if it was fresh or weeks old, blood was blood. When he finally stopped falling, buried under a mountain of debris, he was something between alive and a memory of alive. His regeneration had slowed to a crawl. No blood left to consume in his immediate vicinity. Just darkness, crushing weight, and the distant sounds of the hive settling into its new, crater-filled geography. "This sucks," Denji thought, then passed out. He woke to chanting, "Deliver us from the lie of flesh, for in entropy we find truth." Denji pushed upward, chainsaws igniting automatically, carving through rubble. He emerged into a makeshift chamber hollowed from the collapse zone, lit by bioluminescent fungi and flickering candles arranged in patterns that hurt to look at directly. 13 figures in ragged robes surrounded him, their faces hidden by masks made from human skin. Each mask wore a different expression: joy, sorrow, rage, ecstasy. Behind them, the walls were covered in symbols that seemed to writhe when observed peripherally. "He rises," breathed the figure in the joy mask, just as the voices promised. "The unmaking given form," whispered Sorrow Mask. "The end of stories," said Rage Mask, and this one's voice carried genuine religious fervor. Denji retracted his chainsaws, confused. "Are you guys gonna try to kill me too? Because I'm really getting tired of that." The 13 cultists prostrated themselves as one. "Kill the ending?" Joy Mask sounded genuinely horrified. "We have worshipped you since the moment you tore through reality. We felt it, you understand, felt something vast and hungry push through the warp's membrane. Not daemon, not human, not anything that should be." "We are the cult of the final silence," explained Sorrow Mask, rising to a kneeling position. "We serve the truth that all gods deny, that existence itself is the lie, that in non-being there is peace. And you," Rage Mask pointed at Denji with a trembling finger, "you erase! We've seen your kills, bodies that don't just die, They stop having ever mattered. Even their souls leave no echo in the warp. Denji processed this slowly. He dealt with cults before, devil worshippers mostly, people so desperate they'd sign contracts with anything offering power. These seemed similar but different, more philosophical, more annoying. Look, I'm just trying to find food and maybe a way home. I don't want worshippers. But you could end them! Joymask stood, spreading arms wide. The dark gods, Korn, Nurgle, Tzeentch, Slanesh, they promise power but demand eternal servitude. They are parasites wearing divinity skin. But you! The cultist's voice rose to a fever pitch. You could devour them, erase them from having ever existed. Free us! Something in those words made Denji pause. Back in his world, he'd killed the Gun Devil. Well, part of it. He'd killed the Darkness Devil's manifestation. He'd eaten dozens of devils, erasing them from existence. Old age, Nazis, all sorts of concepts humans feared, gone because he'd consumed them. These dark gods, he said slowly, they're like big devils? Devils? Sorrowmask tilted its head. We know not this term, but yes, they are vast entities born of emotion, dwelling in the immaterial. They feed on worship, fear, bloodshed, despair. They are the cancer in reality's heart. And you think I can eat them? We know you can, Rage Mask said. The warpsmiths we sacrificed to summon you, their souls didn't reach the warp. They just stopped. And the daemon that tried to manifest during the ritual, you erased half of it before you even fully arrived. Denji's stomach growled. He'd regenerated most of his injuries, but he was still hungry. Always hungry.
The cultists exchanged glances, their skin masks shifting with the movement. Finally, Joymask spoke. There is a Chaos Warband operating in the Upper Hive, the Brazen Reapers, servants of Korn. They have resources, food, weapons, passage off-world. A pause, and they're planning to sacrifice 50,000 workers to summon a bloodthirster tomorrow at dawn. If you were to intercede. You want me to crash their party and eat their demon? Denji grinned. It was the first genuinely simple thing anyone had asked of him since arriving. Yeah, okay, I can do that. In exchange, Sorrowmask added quickly, we provide guidance. This realm is hostile to your nature. We've studied it. The Imperium sees you as Xenos. Chaos would try to corrupt you. The warp itself resists your erasure because belief here is tangible. Demons are ideas made flesh. Erasing them requires understanding the concept they embody. So I have to know what I'm eating to make it stick. Denji nodded. That tracked with his experience. Eating the Gun Devil had required confronting humanity's fear of guns itself. All right, teach me about this Korn guy while we walk. The Brazen Reapers had taken over St. Moridin's Cathedral, a structure so vast it occupied 3 entire hive levels. Once, it had housed 10,000 faithful in daily prayer. Now, corpses hung from every pillar, arranged in occult patterns that channeled the screaming of 50,000 captive workers into a single resonant frequency. Blood ran in rivers down the cathedral steps. At the altar, a Chaos Lord in gore-encrusted armor presided over the ritual. Karagast the Red-Handed, who'd killed 3 Space Marine champions and drunk their gene seed. Around him, 50 Kornate berserkers prowled, chain axes idling, waiting for the Bloodthirster's arrival so they could offer it worthy skulls. Blood for the Blood God, skulls for the Skull Throne. The chant was taken up by his warband, a roar of religious ecstasy. Then Denji walked through the front door. He'd cleaned up a bit. The cultists had found him actual clothes, military fatigues looted from dead guardsmen. He looked almost normal, except for the pull cord hanging from his chest. Hey, Denji shouted over the chanting. I heard there's free food if I kill you guys. That true? The chanting stopped. 50 pairs of eyes, some human, some distinctly not, turned to stare at this suicidal idiot. Karagast laughed, a
sound like grinding metal. Another lamb for the slaughter. Brothers, it seems the blood god provides appetizers before the main course. The berserkers charged. Denji yanked his cord. What followed wasn't a battle. It was an erasure. Chainsaw Man tore through the cornate warband like they were made of papier-mâché. Chain axes met chainsaws and simply ceased to exist where they touched. Berserkers swung with superhuman strength, enhanced by chaos blessings. Their blows passed through empty air as Denji's chainsaws erased the space they'd been occupying. Blood sprayed. Denji drank it mid-combat, regenerating from injuries faster than they could accumulate. A bolt round hit him in the chest. He tanked it, regenerated, and bisected the shooter in the same motion. "What are you?" Karagast roared, abandoning the ritual to face this threat directly. "Chainsaw Man," Denji replied, grinning with blood-stained teeth. "And I'm starving." The Chaos Lord swung his demon weapon, a blade that screamed with 8,000 bound souls. It should have cleaned Denji in half. Instead, where Chainsaw met Demon Blade, reality made a sound like breaking glass. The sword vanished, not destroyed, not shattered, simply erased from the timeline of having ever existed. Karagast stared at his empty hand in incomprehension. My blade, the blood god gave me." "Yeah, it tasted like angry metal." Then he took Karagast's head off. The bloodthirster, already half manifested, felt its anchor to reality sever. The ritual had been interrupted. The sacrifices were dead or dying, and something that shouldn't exist stood in the epicenter of what should have been sacred ground. The demon pushed through anyway, because Khorne cared not from whence the blood flowed. It emerged in fire and fury, 12 feet of brass and muscle and infinite rage. Its axe could cleave tank armor. Its roar shattered windows across 12 city blocks. Denji looked up at it and said, "Oh good, a big one. I'm gonna need you to explain what anger is before I eat you, because my cultist friend said that's important." The demon paused, genuinely confused. Then it attacked, and the cathedral became ground zero for a battle between erasure and eternal wrath.
The bloodthirster's axe fell like a meteor, fast enough to crack the sound barrier. Denji dodged, barely, and felt the shock wave shatter every bone in his left side. He hit a pillar hard enough to pulverize his spine, then slid down in a heap of broken flesh. The demon towered over him, eyes like furnaces. "Pathetic whelp! You dare interrupt Khorne's sacrament? I am Brethazok he Eternal, herald of the blood god, and I have slaughtered worlds." Denji coughed blood, felt his spine reconnect vertebra by vertebra. "Yeah? I killed a guy who could see the future once. He talked too much too." He yanked his pull cord again. The chainsaws had retracted when his arms shattered, and launched himself at the demon's legs. His chainsaw arm carved through brass flesh, and the demon screamed, not in pain. Demons barely felt pain, but in something worse. Wrongness. Where Denji's chainsaws cut, the demon's form didn't just wound, it forgot how to exist. The brass flesh didn't bleed demonic ichor. It simply stopped being, leaving gaps that revealed not organs, but pure warp stuff struggling to maintain cohesion. "What sorcery!" Brethazok swung wildly, and this time connected. The axe caught Denji across the torso, splitting him from shoulder to hip. Both halves of him hit the floor, chainsaws sputtering out. The demon raised its axe for the killing blow. Denji's upper half bit into his own severed leg. Blood flooded his system, his own blood, still fresh, still potent. The regeneration kicked in with desperate intensity. His lower half sprouted new organs, reconnected to the upper half in a grotesque display of biological impossibility. Within 5 seconds, he was whole, standing,
chainsaws roaring. "Okay," Denji said, spitting out a chunk of his own calf. "Your turn to explain. What is anger?" "What?" The bloodthirster actually sounded offended. "My cult buddy said I have to understand what you are before I can erase you permanently. So, anger. Explain it. You're made of it, right?" Brethazok's furnace eyes narrowed. It had existed for 10,000 years. It had fought space marines, Eldar farseers, Tau battlesuits, even other daemons. But nothing had ever asked it to explain its conceptual foundation mid-combat. "Anger is the universe's truth," the daemon roared. But there was something almost philosophical in its tone now. "It is the response to betrayal, to weakness, to the lie that life can be gentle. Khorne is murder given divine form, and we are his children. Rage that never dies, violence that never ceases." Denji listened, dodging another axe swing. "So you're like everyone's anger combined? All the times people got pissed off in history?" "More." Brethazok's axe carved through 3 pillars. "We are the potential for anger, the promise that it will never end. That is why we are eternal. That is why you cannot truly kill me." "Huh." Denji blocked the next strike with both chainsaw arms, the impact driving him knee-deep into the floor. "In my world, I erased Nazis. Just poof, gone. Nobody remembers them except as this vague historical thing. No fear, no power, just not important anymore." "Impossible." But there was uncertainty in the daemon's voice now. "The warp is memory made manifest. What is remembered cannot be unmade." "Yeah, well, I'm not from your warp, and my erasure goes deeper than memory. It goes into the concept, the idea."
He could feel it now. The same sensation he'd felt when consuming the Gun Devil. The understanding of what he was fighting. Brethazok wasn't just a demon. It was a story that the universe told itself. A story about how anger was eternal, how violence was inevitable, how blood must flow. And Denji had always been good at ending stories. "I get it now," he said, grinning. "You're scared. Not of dying. You're already kinda dead. You're scared of being forgotten, of your anger not mattering." "Silence!" The bloodthirster swung with desperate fury. Denji caught the axe between his chainsaw arms. The weapon, forged in Khorne's foundries, blessed by 10,000 sacrifices, began to erase. The demon felt it like losing a limb, except worse. It was losing the memory of having ever held the axe. "Here's the thing about anger," Denji said, pushing forward, chainsaws biting into the demon's chest. "It's boring. I've been angry. I spent my whole childhood angry. And you know what? It didn't feed me, didn't keep me warm. Anger's just empty calories." The cathedral's walls began to crack, not from physical force, but from conceptual strain. 2 opposing forces were meeting, the warp's insistence that anger was eternal, and Chainsaw Man's absolute certainty that anything could be erased if he was hungry enough. "Khorne!" Brethazok screamed into the warp. "Blood God, your herald calls for—" Denji's chainsaw head split the demon's skull vertically. Then he bit down. Watching from the cathedral's destroyed gallery, the cult of the final silence witnessed something unprecedented. Chainsaw Man was eating the bloodthirster. Not its flesh. Demons barely had flesh. He was consuming its essence. Every bite removed not just matter, but meaning. The demon's brass skin faded from red to gray to nothing. Its screams of rage became confusion, then questioning, then silence.
By the void, whispered Joymask. He's actually doing it. He's erasing Khorne's herald from the warp itself. Look at the ritual site, Sorrow Mask pointed. The blood patterns are fading. The sacrifice echoes are forgetting why they were screaming. Where Brethazak had stood, there was now just a confused-looking Denji wiping demon blood from his mouth. That tasted like 1,000 bar fights. Kinda nostalgic, actually. Then, the warp screamed. Not audibly, reality doesn't have ears, but every psyker on Mortessa Prime clutched their heads in agony. In orbit, the astropathic choir fell silent, blood leaking from their eyes. Across the subsector, navigators reported their warp sight flickering, showing impossible blind spots where the bloodthirster's existence had been excised from the Immaterium's memory. Khorne, blood god, skull lord, the eternal rage itself, felt something it had never felt in 10 million years of existence. Fear. Not of death, it was beyond death, but fear of erasure, of becoming unremembered, of its eternal war becoming just forgotten. In the Eye of Terror, on the brass throne built from 1,000,000,000,000 skulls, something vast and terrible turned its attention towards a single hive world on the Imperium's edge. Inquisitor Coast received the astropathic message personally, despite the choir's damaged state. 3 words burned into his mind with the force of divine revelation. Khorne demands blood. No, he whispered, understanding immediately. No, not an incursion. Not here. Not now. But the signs were already appearing. In the upper hive, statues of the Emperor began weeping blood. In the lower hive, street gangs found themselves overcome with inexplicable rage, killing each other for reasons they couldn't articulate. The very air tasted of copper and fury. A chaos incursion was forming, not the slow corruption of a cult, but a full demonic manifestation. Khorne was reaching into reality, trying to grasp the thing that had erased his herald. My lord, Magos Ferum's mechanical voice held something approaching fear. Astropathic readings indicate 17 warp rifts opening across the hive city. Estimated demon manifestation in 6 hours. Estimated casualties, total. Coast made the hardest decision of his career. He ordered, Vox the Astartes, tell them Mortessa Prime requires immediate intervention. Then, he paused, hating himself. Find the creature, the one with the chainsaws. Offer him anything, because right now, he's the only thing that's actually hurt Chaos. In the ruined cathedral, Denji sneezed. Weird, he said to the cultists. I feel like someone's talking about me. Above them, the sky began turning red.
The sky didn't just turn red, it bled. Crimson rain fell across Mortessa Prime, each drop hissing where it struck metal, flesh, or stone. The Hive City's billion souls looked up in horror as 17 wounds opened in reality itself, each one vomiting forth daemons of the blood god. Bloodletters poured through in howling packs. Flesh hounds materialized with sulfurous smoke, and leading them 8 bloodthirsters, lesser than Brathazok, but still devastating, descended on wings of rage and brass. Khorne wanted his answer. Khorne wanted blood, and Khorne wanted the thing that had erased his herald. Denji stood atop the cathedral's ruined spire, watching the chaos unfold across the Hive City. The cultists cowered behind him, their philosophical certainty about entropy crumbling in the face of actual apocalypse. So, Denji said conversationally, this is because I ate that demon, right? Yes, Rage Mask whimpered.
We may have underestimated Khorne's attachment to his heralds. The Blood God is furious. He's launching a full incursion just to reach you." "Cool," cracked his knuckles. "How many do I have to kill before he stops?" "All of them!" Joy Mask screamed, hysteria cracking their voice. "You have to kill every daemon, close every rift, and somehow convince a Chaos God that you're not worth the effort, which is impossible because you just erased his favorite herald from existence." Denji considered this. Back home, he'd fought the Darkness Devil, an embodiment of humanity's primal fear. That had nearly killed him, multiple times. This felt similar, except instead of one really powerful devil, it was an angry god throwing an entire army at him. "I'm gonna need more blood," he decided. That's when the Thunderhawks arrived. 3 gunships, painted in the crimson and black of the Blood Angels chapter, screamed through the bleeding sky. They strafed a pack of bloodletters with heavy bolter fire, reducing the daemons to ichor and warp stuff, then circled toward the cathedral. "Unidentified entity," a Vox-amplified voice boomed from the lead ship. "By the authority of the Adeptus Astartes and the God Emperor of mankind, you will stand down and submit to Imperial custody." "More people telling me what to do?" Denji sighed. "I'm starting to see a pattern." The Thunderhawks landed, ramps dropping. 20 Space Marines emerged, each one 7 feet of gene-enhanced superhuman wrapped in ceramite that had survived centuries of warfare. Their bolters were raised, targeting Denji with absolute precision. From the lead gunship stepped Brother Captain Raphaelis, his armor scarred by battles Denji couldn't imagine. His face was stern, eyes cold with the certainty of the Emperor's will. "You are the anomaly, the one that triggered this incursion. Inquisitor Coast believes you may be useful. I believe you are the cause of this catastrophe." He raised his bolt pistol. "Convince me not to execute you where you stand." Denji looked at the Space Marine, then at the demon army flooding through the Hive City, then back to Raphaelis. "I ate one of those big angry demons, actually erased it from existence. Your Inquisitor guy tried to kill me with an orbital strike, by the way, kinda rude. Now the demon god is throwing a tantrum." He paused. "But I can eat the rest of them too, if you've got blood to spare." Raphaelis' expression didn't change. "You claim you can permanently destroy daemons, not banish, destroy." "Yeah, it's kind of my thing." "Prove it." A bloodletter pack crested the cathedral's walls, drawn by the concentration of potential skulls. 12 daemons, each one a 7-foot nightmare of brass and fury, armed with hell blades that could carve through tank armor. Denji yanked his pull cord. The transformation was instant, chainsaws erupting from skull and arms, his human features disappearing behind chrome teeth. He didn't wait for them to attack. He lunged. The Space Marines watched in professional silence as Chainsaw Man tore through the daemon pack like a harvester through wheat. This wasn't the chaotic violence they had expected. It was systematic, efficient, practiced. Each strike erased not just the demon's form, but its connection to the warp. Where normal kills would see the demons disperse and eventually reform, these demons simply stopped. "By the blood," one Space Marine whispered, "their essence isn't returning to the warp. It's just gone." 12 seconds after the bloodletters arrived, they ceased to exist. Denji retracted his chainsaws, breathing hard. The effort was enormous. Each erasure taxed something deeper than physical stamina, but he was still standing. Raphaelis lowered his bolt pistol. The Inquisitor was correct. "You are a weapon." He activated his Vox. "Command, this is Raphaelis, requesting immediate deployment of all available forces to Mortessa Prime. And prepare the fleet. We're going to need every drop of blood we can harvest." Wait, you guys are actually going to help me? Denji asked, surprised. No, Raphaelis said. You are going to help us purge this incursion. In exchange, we provide you the sustenance you require and safe passage off-world once Mortessa is cleansed. He stepped closer. But know this, Anomaly. The moment you become more threat than asset, I will end you personally. The Emperor protects, but he also demands sacrifice. Yeah, okay, fair. Denji had worked under worse contracts. So where are the really big ones? Raphaelis pointed to the Hive Spire district, where reality was tearing itself apart. The 8 bloodthirsters are converging there, drawn to the seat of imperial authority. They intend to slaughter the planetary governor and his entire court. 700,000 souls as an opening sacrifice. And if they do?
A warp rift that size will consume the entire hive, possibly the planet. Raphaelis began walking toward the Thunderhawk. We have 23 minutes before they breach the Spire's defenses. I suggest we move quickly. Denji followed, but paused at the gunship's ramp. The cultists were still cowering on the cathedral roof, watching with terrified awe. Hey, he called to them. You guys wanted to see gods die, right? Come watch. Joymask stood shakily. You're inviting us to witness the erasure of Khorne's wrath? Sure, why not? You helped me understand the demon thing. Seems fair. The cultists exchanged glances, then scrambled aboard the Thunderhawk with desperate enthusiasm. The Space Marines looked disgusted, but said nothing. They had larger concerns. As the gunships lifted off, racing toward the Spire district through a sky full of daemons, Denji looked out at the burning hive city. Millions were dying down there. Millions more would die before this ended. Back in his world, he'd failed to save everyone too, but he'd saved some. Maybe that was enough. Hey, Space Marine guy, he said to Raphaelis, after we kill these 8 demons, does that god stop being angry? Khorne is rage incarnate. He never stops being angry. But if you erase enough of his heralds, he may decide Mortessa isn't worth the expenditure. Chaos gods are petty, but they're not stupid. So I just have to make myself too annoying to bother with. Yeah, I can do that. The Spire district came into view, a towering monument to imperial authority, now surrounded by a wall of brass and fire. 8 bloodthirsters circled it like sharks, their combined presence tearing holes in reality itself. Below them, the planetary defense forces were dying by the thousands, their laser guns useless against demonic fury. Deployment in 30 seconds, the pilot voxed. Raphaelis looked at Denji. The Blood Angels have stood against the darkness for 10,000 years. We have never retreated, never surrendered, never faltered in our duty. He extended a gauntleted hand. Fight well, Anomaly. Die well. And know that even if we fall, the Emperor will remember our sacrifice. Denji shook the hand. It was like gripping a tank. I don't plan on dying, but if I do, tell that Inquisitor guy he still owes me for the orbital strike thing. The ramp dropped. Wind and screaming rushed in. For the Emperor, Raphaelis roared. For blood, the Space Marines answered. For food, Denji added, which got him several confused looks. Then they dropped into hell itself. The 8 bloodthirsters saw them coming, saw the Space Marines in their sacred armor, saw the cultists who dared hope for silence, saw the orange-haired Anomaly with chainsaws for hands, and Khorne, watching through 8 pairs of furnace eyes, recognized the thing that had erased his herald. The blood god roared across the warp, and every daemon on Mortessa Prime turned toward the Spire district. This would be the final battle. Either Chainsaw Man would be torn apart and consumed, or Khorne would learn that even gods could be erased. The first bloodthirster swung its axe. Denji caught it between his chainsaws and pulled, dragging the daemon down to his level. All right, he said, grinning with manic joy. Who's hungry? Because I'm starving. The sky screamed, the warp blurred, and in the ruins of Mortessa Prime, erasure met eternity head-on.
The battle for Mortessa Prime lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Hive City was a smoking crater. 400 billion souls reduced to 8 million survivors, huddled in the deepest bunkers, praying to an emperor who had sent space marines instead of miracles. The planetary governor was dead. The upper spire was gone. 70% of the Hive's infrastructure had been reduced to slag and memory. But the demon incursion had stopped. Not retreated, stopped. As if someone had flipped a switch in the warp itself and said, enough. Denji sat on a pile of rubble that had once been a cathedral to the Emperor, surrounded by the bodies of 6 bloodthirsters. Not dispersed, not banished, dead. Their brass forms lay still, already beginning to corrode in ways demonic essence shouldn't corrode, erased so thoroughly that even Khorne couldn't reclaim their essence. 2 had escaped, fled back through closing warp rifts when they realized what was happening to their kin. Brother Captain Raphaelis approached, his crimson armor scorched black, one arm hanging useless at his side. 19 of his 20 space marines had fallen, but they'd held the line long enough for Denji to do what he did best, erase. "It's done," Raphaelis said, his voice hoarse from 6 hours of battle cant. "The warp signatures are fading. Khorne has withdrawn." He said it like he couldn't quite believe it. A chaos god withdrew because of one mortal with chainsaws. Not mortal, devil, or whatever I am here. The Space Marine studied him with eyes that had seen 10,000 years of history compressed into genetic memory. The Inquisition will want to study you. The Mechanicus will want to dissect you. The Ecclesiarchy will want to burn you as a heretic. He paused. "I'm recommending none of those things." Denji looked up, surprised. "Yeah? Why?" "Because you fought well, died well, repeatedly. I counted 17 fatal injuries you regenerated from. And because," Raphaelis gestured to the ruined hive, "because we won. Against Khorne, against 8 bloodthirsters, against an army that should have consumed this world." His smile was grim. "The Imperium could use more weapons like you, Anomaly. But I suspect you wouldn't accept servitude." "Got that right. I've had enough masters for 3 lifetimes." "Then take this." Raphaelis pulled a data slate from his armor, damaged but functional. "Coordinates for a rogue trader vessel, the Prodigal Fortune. Captain Yasmara owes my chapter a debt. Tell her Raphaelis sent you. She'll ask no questions and transport you anywhere in the segmentum." "You're just letting me go?" "I'm giving you a choice the Imperium rarely offers. Leave or stay and be crushed by the bureaucracy that will inevitably try to control you." Raphaelis turned to leave, then paused. "You erased 6 heralds of Khorne in one battle. Do you understand what that means? Somewhere in the warp, the Blood God is afraid. Not of defeat. He's incapable of understanding defeat, but afraid of being forgotten." "Good," Denji said simply. "Fear's useful. Keeps people honest." The Space Marine laughed, a rare, genuine sound. "Perhaps you understand the Imperium better than you know. Walk with the Emperor's blessing, Chainsaw Man, or don't. I suspect you'll do as you please either way." He left, boarding the last functional Thunderhawk with his surviving brothers. Denji sat there for a long moment, watching the ship disappear into the toxic clouds. The cult of the final silence emerged from whatever hole they'd hidden during the actual fighting. Joy Mask led them. All 13 had survived by being pragmatically absent during the actual fighting. "You did it!"
Joy Mask said, voice trembling with religious ecstasy. You made a chaos god retreat. You proved gods can be unmade.
Yeah, well... Denji stood, chainsaws finally retracting. I didn't do it for your philosophy. I did it because I was hungry, and people kept trying to kill me. He stretched, feeling the exhaustion in bones that had broken and re-knit 100 times. But sure, if it makes you feel better, gods can die. Or at least decide you're not worth the trouble. What will you do now? Asked Sorrow Mask. Denji pulled out the data slate, studying the coordinates. A rogue trader vessel. Passage anywhere in the sector. The chance to find a way home, or at least somewhere less actively trying to murder him. Gonna find some real food, he decided. Then figure out where the hell I am. Then... He paused, thinking about the 8 bloodthirsters, about the way Korn's rage had felt when he'd erased those heralds, about the possibility that this grim dark universe full of gods and demons might actually be edible. Then I'm gonna see how many gods I can eat before they learn to leave me alone. The cultists prostrated themselves again, chanting prayers to entropy and ending. Denji ignored them, walking toward the coordinates marked on the slate, a starport on the hive's edge that had somehow survived the incursion. Behind him, Mortessa Prime burned. Ahead, the vast darkness of the 41st millennium waited, full of horrors that fed on fear and worship and blood. But Denji had spent his whole life hungry, and he'd learned long ago that the best way to deal with monsters was simple: bite back harder. In the warp, Korn sat upon his brass throne and felt something unprecedented: caution. The thing that had killed 6 of his heralds hadn't been banished, hadn't been corrupted, hadn't even been impressed. It had just eaten them like they were fast food and moved on. For the first time in eternity, the Blood God understood that there were some wars not worth fighting. Some enemies not worth the blood they'd cost. The Imperium would record the Mortessa incident as a minor demonic incursion, successfully repelled. The Inquisition would classify all records of Chainsaw Man as Obsidian-level secrets. The Blood Angels would remember, but speak of it only in hushed tones. But in the underhives, in the places where desperate people whispered dangerous truths, a new story began to spread. About a devil with chainsaws who'd made a god retreat. About something that could erase demons from existence itself. About a weapon that chose its own targets. And in the darkness between stars, Denji boarded the Prodigal Fortune, ate his first real meal in what felt like weeks, and fell asleep in a cargo hold, dreaming of home. The 41st millennium had survived worse than Chainsaw Man, but Chainsaw Man had survived the 41st millennium. And that, perhaps, was the more impressive